Okay, it is 2:44 my time, 11:44 for some of you. We're going to take a half-hour break. When we come back, please stay on if you can. When we come back, we're going to be in the large group. I'm going to share a little bit of content from the process of growth on the welcoming stage and the preparing for laying the groundwork for vocation stage. And then we're going to hear from 3 guides, as I said this morning, about their experience of working with communities in that stage. And then we'll move back into cohorts to break that open. So see you in 30 minutes and have a good break. So I'm going to share my screen again in just a moment. What we got a little bit of feedback the last time that a summary of some of the content of the welcoming stage would be helpful. And then as Liam and I talked about it, we decided that we also would just do a little bit of a summary of the stage that we're talking about today. So I didn't actually put together a presentation. What I did is I pulled directly from the process of growth, some of the key points in each one of those stages. And I'm just going to share those with you. So let me share my screen, Liam, so you can just wave at me if I'm going too fast. Okay, so the welcoming stage, I want to just point to the process of CLC growth. It was written by a group of CLC members after the Nairobi Assembly, before the Fatima Assembly. It's the second half of a formation document, the first half being our CLC charism, which came directly out of the World Assembly in Itaisi in 1998. It's a rich document. It's long. It can feel complex, but if you take it bits at a time, it's really, really rich. And I think it's very important for guides to, I think I messed up. I need to see if I can get to I'm going to unshare for a minute and just open the document before I try to share it. Okay. Okay, so first, initially looking at the welcoming stage, and again, I'm only going to just point to what's in the document. So the process of growth would say that the objective of this stage is to get to know each other, acquire a basic knowledge and experience about the self, about CLC, and about spirituality, particularly Ignatian. And in the stage, we try to ensure that participants get to know others in the group, that they work on self-knowledge and personal acceptance of self and acceptance of the other, and that they discover within themselves those profound desires inspired by God, the desire to move to God, the desire to allow our lives to be transformed by God. Participants will receive basic information about CLC, structures, and spirituality, and to a certain degree begin to live out that experience. All this helps them decide if they want to start the process of discovering whether CLC is the vocation that God's calling them to. So those are the objectives. The content flows from these. To experience the sharing of personal life and faith life with the group and accepting that sharing from others. Individuals grow to trust each other in the group. They begin to understand something of the CLC vocation as Ignatian, Apostolic, and Communitarian, and the group and the meeting content does that. Members see reality as a place of encounter with God. And the numbers that you see there are the numbers within the process of growth. The dynamic of the meetings, this is exactly what we've been talking about in the in the presentation this morning, the dynamics of the meeting will be such that to maintain a prayerful atmosphere of respect and listening, which will in turn help promote a sense of mutual welcome. It will be a spiritual conversation in whatever way that group can begin to do that. The guide's role is very active. The guide is both the leader and the guide at this point. It's planning, facilitating the meetings. It's communicating with members about meetings and other activities. It's setting expectations. It's introducing the meeting format, faith sharing, Ignatian prayer. So it's a very comprehensive goal. The guide is very active in the first few meetings. The spiritual exercises, the role of the spiritual exercises, how they play out in this stage. The welcoming, and this is from Liam's work, the welcoming stage embodies the movement of one being loved, being found and called by God as Jesus loved, found, and called Matthew in his tax office to follow him. The welcoming stage celebrates the arrival of a new member to an existing group or the initial coming together of a new community. It reflects the response to grace of being loved, just like the first part of the exercises, found and called by God into a CLC community that is part of the mystical body of Christ. The group or community acts and I'd say the guide in particular at this stage, acts as in the person of Christ, acts as Christ to embrace, accept, and make the members feel they belong. So it covers both the human dimension, to embrace, to accept, and to belong, and the spiritual, mystical dimension, to be loved, to be found, and to be called. And the readiness for the next stage, feeling positive about the self and accepted by the group, beginning to take some responsibility for the group. The group begins to identify, have an identity of its own, and individuals begin to feel responsible for each other. Members become more aware and sensitive to the conditions in the world. And that's it. That's what I wanted to say about that round. Quick, let's take a moment of silence. We'll deal with questions at the end. And then I want to move right into the stage we're going to be talking about today. And again, the invitation is to really sit with this stuff yourself. Don't just sit and read it. Sit and reflect on a section, because there is a lot of richness in this document. It's written from a world perspective, so you have to sort through a little bit of cultural differences and some things that may not apply to our context. But generally speaking, it's incredibly rich. So laying the foundation for vocation, this stage could be 1 to 4 years. So it's a long period. It can be a long period of time. The objective. We could describe this as directly from the document. We could describe this stage also as one of getting to know each other, of being known and knowing others in the community, of knowing Jesus Christ personally and being known by him, of knowing the human environment in which we move from a more critical standpoint, and finally of getting to know the CLC way of life sufficiently well to be able to judge whether this might be the way of our vocation. So clear statement of the objective of this particular stage. It's focused on personal vocation. So during this time, the members of a particular community begin to build their sense of personal. Now, they may already be a pretty mature group of people who already have a sense of their personal vocation, but is there a vocation to be part of this community, to CLC, this way of life? Those who wish to undertake the vocational discernment and are ready to do so begin a new stage. Not everyone makes this transition at the same time. And the end of the stage is marked by the celebration of temporary commitment. The content is, there's a lot of information on the content, and you wouldn't necessarily do all of it, but some of it is essential. People need to have the experience of accepting and loving themselves as God. So the first week of the exercises and beginning into the second week, to know and be known as an individual, the group context. To live out the experience of being welcomed and accepted by others in the group, accept it as God accepts us, and act in a similar way toward them. Become really invested in each other. To know our God more closely. To discover a more and more deeply personal faith. Moving from the God of institutionalized religion, which some people will come with, to a God who is the Father of Jesus, the God of love. And then to begin some Ignatian practice. Daily examine, a beginning experience of the exercises if people don't already have it. Learning to share the fruits of prayer. The meeting evaluation, really being able to go back and reflect on what's happening in the meeting, to carry on the initial experience of the exercises, and to move towards spiritual guidance. So people are beginning to engage, and some people come with this. So if they come with it, the focus then becomes more on the relationship to the community. So if they come with the nation, then it's to get to know the CLC identity, its way of life, our spirituality, mission, organization, and means of growth, to really come to know CLC and begin to discern if that's the call, and to share community life and deepen our experience of the Trinity that is community, to feel God present in the community and people, and the commitment with others. And to an experience initiation into a more, again, a critical analysis, never forgetting that we are fundamentally apostolic. So the option for the poor, to recognize that we're all children of God and as thus brothers and sisters. And the signs of readiness for the next stage, people are really clear that Jesus is the center of our lives. Members will experience the living out of the exercises and practice some form of prayer in daily life. Members feel responsible for each other to some extent and live in a climate of trust and respect and mutual acceptance. There appears a desire, a particular vocation within the church to adopt the CLC way of life in a more conscious manner and to establish greater links with the world community, thus temporary commitment. Now, my experience as a guide is those are things you can see in a community. Those are tangible enough. And the guide is looking for those things as the community grows. Growing sensitivity to the poor, promise of justice, and commitment to simplicity of CLC life. So the signs of the readiness for the next stage. And that's all I was going to do. I'm going to stop share and invite you to use that context as we listen to the three guides who are sharing their experience of working with communities through that round. There are three people who are sharing. I actually had one of them wrong, and I have to apologize to Tufong for scaring her, which I probably did. The three people are Litvina Yun from Canada, Helen Sol from Atlanta, who's with KCLC, and Fong Ha from California, from Southwest US CLC. And I think, Yadvin, are you willing to go first? But as you start, could I ask Helen if you would go second, and Fong Ha if you would go third. and we'll just follow one after the other, okay? And Paul, you can take me off the screen.
So I go first.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm from CLC Canada Central Region, and I am happy to share with you how our region asks the Spirit to gradually call a person to temporary commitment through the first of 3 manuals in the Canadian Formation Program. We use various ways to gather people. For example, movie about Ignatius through the parish, web inquiry, sometimes referred by the spiritual director or a person, or through retreat. A welcoming group is on standby to have a coffee chat with an inquiry. When there are enough people to form a group, usually about 8, an information meeting is held to share CLC 3 pillars, CLC way of life. Those in attendance experience the Ignatian format and learn the process of joining a group. Even at this point, each person is invited to discern in their own way. Do they desire to follow Ignatian spirituality? Do they desire to live out Ignatian spirituality in a group? Meanwhile, our special team has been formed to take on the formation responsibilities of this new group. That is a guide, startup leaders to facilitate the first 13 meetings. The startup leader could be an individual or a CLC group. The new group members and the team will decide the location and time for the meeting. As for the meeting frequency, we strongly recommend weekly meetings to help the new group members bond. Then the new group starts manual 1, sessions 1 through 6. After each meeting, the facilitator prays the facilitators examine and plans with the team for the next session. Through manual 1, session 1 through 1 to 6, the members will learn what the CLC is, what CLC way of life means, our relationship with Jesus Christ and CLC, how we are called to the service, and how we share in the mission of Jesus Christ in the church, and our mission has no limit. And Mary, the first disciple, a model of mission, and our own relationship with Mary, Ignatius' relationship with Mary. In session 6, each member will write a letter to their experience in the group, looking back at the sessions, and read it to the group. In this way, each person is learning to discern their future commitment in CLC. In Manual 1, sessions 7 through 13, they will experience how to open ourselves to God in silence and explore various types of prayers. How to learn how to pray, and a daily practice of a personal prayer based on scripture, including the review of a prayer. and guided experience of praying with the God's person. We use imaginative prayer. Then the images of God. So we get in touch with our own personal faith experience. Then recognition of a key experience of my own spiritual life. This becomes the personal grace, the history. And in session 13, the community will reflect on the life of the community to date. Again, each person discerns whether or not to continue and complete Manual 1. If some members decide to leave the group at this time, they are sent with blessings on their journey, finding a new path. The remaining members in the group will make initial commitment. They are committed to attending the meeting regularly, daily Ignatian prayer, practicing Ignatian examen, sharing responsibilities within the group. Example, starting to facilitate meetings and for one person to be a coordinator. Joining the larger CLC by sending a contact person to regional council meeting. Paying a membership fee and having the name of the group in the regional directory. Completing Manual 1. Then the group plans the Eucharist presided by the EEA, if possible, to celebrate their initial commitment with the larger CLC. The contents of the Manual 1 do not change. It depends on the members' background of the group. Only how the team present the content to the group may change. The members usually are from all walks of life. And we can see through the regular meeting, the members learn how CLC meeting process, what CLC is, what CLC community is. So regardless of what the members' backgrounds are, it is important to go through these formation. We recommend that every member have a spiritual director. We recommend prayer companions and provide prayer companions to accompany the members who do not have a spiritual director. Once the initial commitment is made, they will select the group coordinator, facilitator, contact person, and discern the name of the group. The community will continue with the Manual 1, session 14 through 37. For a while, the guide may attend each meeting to guide the group, and slowly the guide's visit community becomes less frequent, all the while remaining in communication with the community's coordinator. When the group completes Manual 1, each member discerns to do the spiritual exercises if they have not done so. Those who did the spiritual exercises previously will renew the spiritual exercises. Those who did not have the spiritual exercise will do annotation 19 with a spiritual director from the CLC or choose their own spiritual director. In week 2 of the spiritual exercises, the making a choice of life we call the election, the members with the help of their spiritual director will discern their temporary commitment. That is to continue with the CLC way of life. While the members are doing the spiritual exercises, they will continue meeting once in a while and share their experiences. If the members are too small, they are invited to the existing community as guests and continue their CLC meeting. At this time, the members and spiritual directors will continue the Ignatian personal prayer and Ignatian examen, attending the small community meeting faithfully. A deeper understanding of CLC is a way of life built on 3 pillars: spirituality, community, and mission, integrating Christian values in all areas of life, growing knowledge of larger CLC and participation in the larger CLC events, understanding the Christian faith as a vocation and mission, growing in personal love for and in the following of Christ, a deeper understanding of a lay vocation, growing in love for the church, experiencing and knowing more of Christian spirituality, living out the universality of the CLC vocation, encouraging a critical and Christian formation regarding the problems of the world, having always as a point of reference the word of the poor, understanding the conditions of Christian discipleship and the financial co-responsibility. Those who discerned to continue the journey of this CLC way of life will make a temporary commitment. The members will celebrate with the Eucharist with the members of other communities and be introduced to the larger community formally, either in regional council meeting or regional assembly. This is how I experienced it, as well as we in Central Region moving community towards the temporary commitment.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm talking about talking about the commitment in CLC. Can I go next screen? Oh, okay. Commitment in CLC. Actually, preparing for this presentation, I look up some references, and then in 2008, World Assembly at Fatima says the apostolic strength of the body depends on the depth of commitment to our way of life. And our project 145 shows that any national community not already having that temporary and permanent commitment, they are asked to reconsider the matters. So commitment gives full expression to personal vocation, to strengthen CLC apostolic capacity and building CLC identity and visibility in the world, and more. And then next one. And temporary permanent commitment in CLC is articulated in GP and GN. And then GP number 10 says, once decision has been made and approved by the wider community, the member assumes the temporary commitment, and then later on make a permanent commitment follows. So next. So I'm here to explain about the processes toward the commitment in KCLC in USA. The process may vary between 5 KCLC regional communities. We have 5 regions like New York and the Mid-Atlantic region, and Chicago and West and Atlanta. The discernment about the readiness for the commitment is the most critical, important key making a commitment. Actually, last week, I think Christina Kim gave presentation about the initial pre-CLC program run by KCLC. Next screen, please. Yes, initial welcoming stage, we have KCLC has a 6 months pre-CLC program first 10 week, we have a Tracking the Spirit, Introduction to Spirituality, Ignition Spirituality. And then after that, we have a 14 week, 18th annotation light work program, and then praying with GPs. And then for those 6 months period, the participant who are going through discerning process to whether joining the CLC community or not. So during this stage, we sent 2 guides per community for every week during the 6 months program period. And then the next session, please. And then second stage, after the 6 months pre-CLC program, the members who wants to decide to go ahead to join the CLC, then it will be laying the foundation for vocation stage. Then either they form or join a new community and live out the CLC way of life. It takes about 1.5 years for the discerning period for the towards first temporary commitment. So during this period, we have we use the book, To Share in the Life of Christ. And then during this vocation, the foundation for vocation stage, guides is sent to the community every meeting until the first temporary commitment is held. So actually, 2020, January 2020, we started a pre-CLC program for Dallas, Texas community. And after finishing the 6 months pre-CLC program, they started the second stage of laying the foundation for vocation stage. And now in Dallas, Texas, there are 2 small community, and they are preparing. Actually, after 6 months, almost a year and a half until now, they are in this second stage of CLC formation. So now they are, since September, they are doing like a 13-week retreat program for the commitment. So next, please. So as you can see, preparing for the first temporary commitment, we are using the colloquial on commitment. Actually, it was originally prepared by Australian, but we adapt some text, and then we are using this 13-week for the first temporary commitment. And then also we provide some CLC documents and some reading materials during this preparation. And then during this 13 weekly meeting with their prayer companion, and then those prayer companion has a supervision session too. And then the members who do this preparation for the temporary commitment, they have a community meeting as usual, and I think twice a month. So this is the process, and then resources we are using for the preparing for the temporary commitment. And then next, please. And then after first temporary commitment, KCLC renew the commitment every year. Whoever made commitment, temporary commitment, until making permanent commitment, that usually takes 2 and 8 years in CLC communities, CLC life. So even the renewal, commitment renewal, we are preparing for lots of different retreat program, like usually 4 weeks through 12 weeks program to prepare for the every annual renewal, commitment renewal. And also all members are encouraged to attend the annual retreat, Ignition Spirituality retreat, like 5 days and 9 days retreat. So that's our process in KCLC. And then next, please. And then also, if someone wants to do the permanent commitment, they have to go through the discerning process first, and then members has to do 19th annotation is mandatory to making a permanent commitment. And then while they are doing 19th annotation, they attend the monthly group meeting for the sharing. And that's the requirement for the permanent commitment preparation. Next, please. So in KCLC in USA, the first temporary commitment was made in 1997. Actually, the commitment was very, from the beginning, KCLC instilled this commitment into the community. So KCLC in New York, they made the first temporary commitment in 97. And then thereafter, like different regions, Atlanta was the 2004, made the first temporary commitment. And then the next, please. And then first permanent commitment members were in New York 2004, and then Atlanta was 2009. So when you see the first temporary commitment and then the permanent commitment, the time period in between takes for a while. So this is the picture, I think, from New York, 2004, cases in New York, permanent commitment. So next, please. And this is permanent commitment pictures from Atlanta and then Western. I think some of here today from as a guide training. So, and then I think there is 2009 in Atlanta. I think Carmen was here from New Orleans to attend our ceremony. So, and then next, please. And then this is the this year's commitment ceremony in Atlanta, KCS Atlanta. There is all the commitment members with white and black clothing, and then we celebrated with Eucharistic Mass, and then afterwards we have a kind of a celebration and party together. So commitment ceremony is kind of big part of our annual event in KCLC. Thank you. Is anybody has any questions?
Let's hold them until after all three.
Okay.
Phom Ha.
Okay. Let me see. So I would like to share how we do commitments and affiliation in Donghan. It may be a little strange, or maybe the first time you heard about the affiliation. I'm sure commitment, we talked about initial commitment as well as permanent commitment. Those are made by the individual. Affiliation might be a Donghan specific thing, because usually the groups in Donghan will form quite organically. We just naturally gravitate towards each other, usually after an initiation retreat, out of a marriage renewal workshop, or out of a seed retreat. Families get together, or young adults get together. And at the beginning, we're very unstructured. So after about 1 to 2 years journeying together, having had the opportunities to meet the larger community at the regional or national level, the question of seeking affiliation, COC affiliation, to become a COC community will rise. And that's where the affiliation comes in. In the meantime, the groups that are not fully affiliated still are considered part of the region, but there's some sort of, what you call pre-community until they're ready. So First, for the commitments, the initial commitment usually initiated by the individual or suggested by the group coordinator or regional formation coordinator after a couple years in a group. Questions can be like, would you consider initial CLC commitment? Would you be open for a discernment process? And then if the answer is yes, someone from the formation team would approach that individual with more detailed explanation. A list of spiritual directors, it could be local or remote because we can use Zoom, would be provided to that individual. And then he or she can choose one to accompany him or her. And then from there, the discernment begins. Typically, it's about 3 to 4 sessions lasting 1 to 2 months of the discernment. This is our objective. And we have a lot in our toolkit. We have scriptures and reflection questions. We have general principles and general norms. And we have the colloquial commitment, which was just mentioned just a little while ago, that same document from the Australian. Here's a sample of what we had last year in the Midwest region, Dong Han's Midwest. You can see they have 4 weeks, and then the last one would be the commitment ceremony. The prayer topic, the grace we're asking for, and then the document, the CLC supplemental reading on the right. And this process requires like daily prayer of the individual, 25-35 minutes, weekly meeting with the spiritual director, and then they have a group Zoom at the end for those who decide to go ahead with the commitment. The permanent commitment for us is usually 2 to 9 years after the initial commitment. And similarly, is a common prerequisite that you have made the 19 annotation. And the process is quite similar to the initial commitment. Now, a story about the affiliation. This is sought after as a group with a guide, an official guide, if that group has an official guide, or sometimes a temporary guide in the sense that they can invite someone from the formation team to be their guide as they go through this process. It would be a communal discernment, usually 2-3 meetings. And we use this material. As I explained before, Dong Han officially became part of CLC-USA in 2004, but many Dong Han groups had journeyed together for a couple of decades before that. Thus, upon becoming an official part of CLC-USA, each community needed some time to make that election for itself. For some group, it didn't take long. For some group, it would take, or it did take a long time. For the newly formed group, this question would be brought up after about 2 years. Are we ready to become an official CLC community? And the guide would accompany the group through 2-3 sessions like this. Sometimes half of the group is ready while the others, are not. And the role of the guide here is to encourage and facilitate a spiritual conversation. We do use a 3-round sharing in this case. It will take a few meetings before we see a consensus. Sometimes it's a go-ahead. We will become, a fully affiliated CLC group. Sometimes it turns out that we're not ready or we don't have a consensus yet. There's strong resistance. So the role of the guide here is quite crucial in leading the community toward affiliation. At the same time, there will be members in that group who really want to seek CLC vocation for themselves. So what do they do when the rest of the group is not ready? It's a little tricky and sensitive, and there's no cookie cutter answer for the different communities in this case. And this is where the role of the guide is very crucial. I didn't get a chance to gather more beautiful picture, but in the case of the individual or the group has decided to make the commitment or the affiliation, the spiritual director, the one who accompanies them, will inform the regional coordinator of the decision, and then we usually have the ceremony taking place during the regional assembly or the national assembly. This is one we had this past national assembly in Houston. There were more people than this, but this is my poor cell phone camera. All right, that's it for me.
Thank you.
Could you repeat your question?
Oh, just I'm just wondering why your region, like in the CLC Canada manual, people are invited to discern making a commitment after